digital revolution has transformed the way businesses interact with their audiences. The shift presents challenges and opportunities for communication companies like Meropa to explore innovative ways to foster new relationships between corporate South Africa and new distribution channels. Joining me now to unpack more of this is the Managing Director of Meropa Communications, Yolisa Pasipanodya. Yolisa, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gary.
So as we suggested in the introduction, how's Meropa navigating this new communications landscape, keeping in mind, the US elections have just been, and we're learning a lot about communication, the role of the media, fake news, misinformation, etc. This might be a good point to start the conversation.
Absolutely. So we're finding, the role of an agency such as Meropa becomes quite important in a very cluttered landscape when it comes to media. We're finding that, the media houses have downscaled quite a bit. You don't have as many workers on the ground. So you think of PR agencies as the people who sort of fill the gap. For us, it's important to still tell real stories, keep the integrity of our clients, and make sure that their real stories are heard by the audiences that they need to reach. And so we basically help them to package those stories and make sure that those stories are then told to the media houses. And if not the media houses, then we're also assisting them to actually utilize platforms that they can put stories across on those platforms by themselves, and making sure that their audiences can curate those stories at their own pleasure.
So obviously it looks like there's a greater need for authentic, voices, no matter which platform, whether it's traditional media or social media. But they also say the more things change, the more they stay the same. What's your view on that?
I totally agree. We're sitting in a world where, irrespective of, what platforms you're utilizing, you're still telling a story. So it's all about storytelling. So that hasn't changed. The trick now is to make sure that your story has that golden thread, whether you're telling the story yourselves on your own platforms, your website, your newsletters and what have you, or you're going to a media house and saying we'd like to be interviewed, or you're telling on your social media pages. It's still a story. A story is a story is a story, and that doesn't change. It's just where you are now putting the story. That's what's changed and what has expanded over time. The reality is that we often tell our clients that in the absence of you telling your own story, someone might tell it for you. So you have to make sure that you have your own narrative, put that across, and that's where we come in. We're able to then help you package those stories and make sure that you're telling them to those correct audiences.
One of the verticals in which you specialize is reputation management. How has that vertical changed in as far as communication is concerned?
Well, they always say, you build your reputation over, 20, 30 years, but the reality nowadays is that it takes a few seconds to destroy. And that's purely because, the reality of things such as fake news, AI-generated bots, people are able to interrupt your storytelling journey and basically tell a different narrative to what you want to put out there. And often the public is not able to actually tell the difference between the real and the fake, and that's where the challenge is. Right now, as we speak, I'm sure you're well aware there have been quite a few interesting stories that have floated around in the run-up to the elections in the US, and it's up to the media houses, it's up to the platforms where those stories are told to actually consider whether they are fake or not. The general public out there is no longer comfortable with just looking at something and taking it for what it is and saying, oh, this must be true. We now all need to interrogate where the story is coming from and, try and figure out whether it is true or not.
One of the interesting dynamics is the fact that it used to be in the olden days that size mattered. The size of your organization, your long history, etc., and that automatically guaranteed you a free ride into the communication paths. But the size, history, and the mix of the reputation within that still really matter.
I would say, look, there are a few people who still believe in the tradition of size and history. But the reality is, in this day and age, a lot of our viewers and our listeners are actually more interested in where you align yourself as an organization. So are you, environmentally friendly? Are you for the good of the earth, the good of the people? That's what people are engaging with right now, and that's where you'll find the younger generation is really very much interested in, they won't just buy things and buy product. They look at whether, if it's makeup, is it anti-cruelty, is it safe, is it linked to anything that they might deem not, environmentally friendly or not good for the earth. So it's from a reputation point of view, companies have to realize that, gone are the days of just saying, oh, we've got, 100 years of experience behind us. The reality is, how are you showing up now as an organization? Are you still relevant to an audience? And, can they buy into what you are selling, whether it's a product or a service?
So how does that then blend into the decision? Do you as a company or even as an individual, do you need public relations? Do you need organizations that can help you structure your communications?
I believe absolutely any organization is doing itself a disservice by not investing in public relations, whether it's internal or external. I always believe it's best to actually have an external supplier when it comes to public relations, purely because we're not internal. We're able to look from an outside point of view and understand what's happening internally, and then bring out the best in you. Sometimes, you drink the Kool-Aid, you're inside, and you all convince yourselves you're doing the right thing. Whereas we come in and we're able to, conduct a proper audit and just say, realistically, are you pushing as much as you can when it comes to your messaging? Are you positioned correctly? Sometimes it's also the mind shift of the CEO doesn't always have to be the spokesperson, which is a hard pill to swallow for many organizations, especially the more traditional, slightly, older organizations. You find that they are stuck in those ways. And when we come in and we try to shake things up and also move them to, the digital era, some still believe in the good old press release. We're saying video news releases are something worth looking into, voice notes. From a media perspective, we now understand that you can communicate in many, many different ways, and sometimes it's really difficult to move them across.
But we're going to have fascinating and obviously some interesting times ahead, also going into 2025. Yolisa, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gary.
That was the Managing Director of Meropa Communications, Yolisa Pasipanodya. Until next time, goodbye.